Uh, anyway, I think the Daniel Robinson case is heating up, and I think a person of interest is Elliot, the co-worker. Okay, now when Robinson showed up, you think he didn't know who was showing up? A black kid that was not welcome, should not have gotten a job. Something like that. Okay, so if any part of the story stinks, all of it likely does. Okay, now Elliot said, well, he seemed like he was on drugs, but I looked into his eyes and his pupils were not dilated. Okay, what that is, that's a mixing of half-truths to make it sound more believable. It's exactly what it was. Okay, now here's his face, close up, high definition as you can get. And he said, I looked into his eyes, but his pupils were not dilated. That makes the story more believable. Okay, now this guy shows up. Robinson shows up and meets Elliot, the co-worker, and they've never seen each other before. He's likely wearing sunglasses out in the desert. Maybe not. It was kind of cloudy and it was cooler and it could be raining. But now he shows up, talks to Elliot, and Elliot says, he seemed like he was on drugs, but I looked into his eyes and his pupils weren't dilated. Okay? One thing I go by, if any part of the story is wrong, it stinks, all of it does. Okay, so Daniel, us going by the story of Elliot, he says, well, let's go into Phoenix to rest. Let's go into Phoenix to rest. And then Elliot, of course, says, no, we got work to do, man. We got work to do. And then he supposedly follows the tracks out into the desert afterwards. And plus, look at what Elliot said. He said he put on his seatbelt and drove off. But the seatbelt was buckled on the seat, like a person would do to buckle it and sit on it. So he said he buckled his seatbelt. See what he's doing? He's saying shit that sounds believable. He put on a seatbelt and buckled it. But in the wreck, the fact is, the seatbelt was buckled. It was found buckled, sitting on the seat. So I think Elliot, the co-worker, should be looked at, interviewed again, and get him in there, interview him, and crack him. Crack him. None of this makes any sense. The seatbelt was buckled. Okay, so someone gets him and pulls him out or does whatever. What? They then buckle the seatbelt and put it on the seat? Well, the seatbelt was found buckled, sitting on the seat where a person would click it so it doesn't keep doing the bings or whatever it does. Now, this stinks. This stinks to high heaven. And Elliot should be looked at much closer. With black kid showing up, not welcome. Not welcome. And he shows up, but mysteriously a few minutes later, he takes off. He takes off. Possibly he was rebuffed and felt that he wasn't welcome there. And then the Jeep shows up, almost like he was being chased. And then you have this federal agent, Mr. X, down in the wash that said, well, I saw him. I talked to him, and he seemed normal to me. He was cleaning out his Jeep. That's also bullshit. What? He's driving along after leaving, and a couple hours later, and is down there, but he spots him cleaning out his Jeep. But he seemed okay to me, and also there was no damage to the vehicle at that time. That sounds like a goddamn story. It sounds like a goddamn story to put the story over from Elliot to so-called federal agent Mr. X, who can't be found. Put it over on him, that he comes up, well, I'm at the well. All the news says I was the last person that's seen him. Well, I'm not going to have them look at me. No, I'm going to say, well, federal agent, he puts out the story, a federal agent saw him, and there's no damage to the Jeep, no nothing. He seemed normal to me, exactly the opposite of what everyone else said. Now, this reeks to high heaven, and the Elliot co-worker should be looked at much closer, much closer. If any part of the story stinks, all of it likely does. Here's Elliot, the co-worker, and yet he's standing face to face, almost touching noses and kissing Daniel Robinson. His quote, look it up. I don't want to do it now and have to do a complex video. I looked into his eyes, and his pupils were not dilated. You telling me you looked into his eyes? First of all, why would you be doing that? What would you see? No, I say Elliot's story stinks, reeks to high heaven, and that they knew quite well that he was showing up and they didn't like it.